Will the Joe Biden-Xi Jinping meeting at the APEC summit iron out differences between the two biggest economies of the world? To discuss matters further, we are being joined live by veteran journalist Mr. Terril Yue Jones from California. He currently teaches international journalism at the Claremont McKenna College. Welcome to WION, sir.
Thank you for having me tonight.
All right, so let's start off with this. Now, the much anticipated in-person talks between US President Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping during the APEC summit. What would you say will be the key areas of discussions between both the leaders? It almost seems as if the APEC summit is happening on the sidelines of this meeting. But what should we expect?
Well, I think the American public and media and government are paying more attention to this bilateral meeting than the overall APEC meeting. It's quite a big deal in the United States. You know, this is only the second time that Joe Biden and Xi Jinping have met when Joe Biden has been president. And there's so much going on in the world in which China is involved, with which the United States wants China's cooperation and support. Or participation, that there is a lot that could come out of this. I don't think that there is are great hopes for concrete bilateral deals. I mean, there's there's talk of a deal on fentanyl and on easing some sanctions against China, but it's more of a chance to reestablish a dialogue. Where there has not been much lately, especially between the militaries and the highest leaders. And I think that is something that the administration is looking for, to try to sway Beijing some to maybe participate a little more aggressively in areas that the United States would like to see China act, such as trying to maybe end hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, certainly tone down the tension in the South Pacific and around Taiwan, and maybe even with things going on in the Middle East.
Mr. Jones, and now US it's wanting some kind of cooperation from China. It is evident one is expecting those kind of talks to come in, but there is a slight irony here. Joe Biden is also eager to portray the IPEF, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, as producing meaningful outcomes to leaders of APEC countries, that he seeks to offer them a US-led alternative to deeper economic ties that they already have with China. How do you see this one playing out? They do want to cooperate, they want China to cooperate, but they are kind of competing here as well, do you feel?
Well, that's definitely a competitive alternative to China's very aggressive investment promotion plans throughout Asia, Africa, and Central Asia. It has potential, but it really depends on how present the United States can be, what the U.S. can offer, because China being there in the region can sometimes offer more in terms of personnel, material, equipment, than the United States can. And in some cases, ideologically, it doesn't make that much difference to countries as to who is helping them build their infrastructures and ports. China has much more experience in cultivating these relationships in such regions where that the United States has somewhat neglected over the decades. And so it's not looking very promising that the IPEF will have much of an effect very soon. Of course, China looks at things in a very long-term perspective, and the United States does not. The United States and Americans tend to look for quick results, and if they don't get quick results to their satisfaction, then they might be more prone to abandon such a plan at a time or under conditions where China would not.
Mr. Jones, also wanted to get your opinion on this one. Now, this summit is happening while the war in West Asia rages on the Israel-Hamas war. Now, I wanted to understand from you, do you feel US would, or rather Joe Biden would want Xi Jinping to play his card over Iran to get them to back off all their proxies from the region, because China does have an influence in the Iranian region? Do you feel there will be any kind of talks regarding China using its influence over Iran?
I'm sure that Joe Biden will try to seek China's influence over Iran and throughout the Middle East to try to ease tensions and to keep a regional war from breaking out between many countries. there are not many countries that the U.S. could turn to ask their assistance and influence to bring about such a result. China, for decades, has had long-standing relations with Arab countries, including Palestinians, and so it's only natural that the U.S. would want to ask China to wield such influence. But China has been reluctant to really step into such issues, such as conflict in Russia, Ukraine, very aggressively, because it doesn't want to upset one side or the other. China has been playing a peacemaking role in the Middle East in recent months by brokering the deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And I think it wants to keep that kind of reputation and role going, because it sees itself as being able to do something where the United States cannot. And so I think that China will be interested in I wouldn't say intervening so directly, but in exercising some of its influence to counsel caution, or at least some calm amid all the chaos that is happening over there.
And if China is successful in doing that, it will be a win for China more than anyone else, that they were able to calm tensions in the midst of the ongoing conflict, which only seems to be spiraling out of control. So I also want to get your opinion from one war to the next one. Now, in the absence of President Putin, he will not be in attendance. How will Russia's interests be represented and addressed during the APEC Leaders Week, especially considering the geopolitical context since the Ukraine invasion?
I'm not sure their interests will be represented, really. Certainly, China and Russia, specifically Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, have developed quite close relationship, and who knows, perhaps Xi Jinping is carrying some kind of a message. I'm sure, though, that he will speak in favor of Russia and in ways to try to maybe convince the United States to back off of some of its pressure and maybe its involvement in the Ukraine war, perhaps as a kind of a trade-off. If you want us, China, to exercise our influence in the Middle East and prevent a regional war, to prevent further attacks on American soldiers and installations, then perhaps you, Washington, can ease up somewhat on your assistance to the war against Russia in Ukraine.
That's a very, very interesting point. I mean, that is one card that China can definitely try to play. But of course, we'll get to know as and when the two leaders meet, and how much of it is made public will be the next question. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for your time. That was a veteran journalist, Mr. Terril Yue Jones from California, sharing his insights on this.
You're most welcome.